everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of yesterday's video. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, you're gonna have to go and do that, or this video is not gonna make much sense. To briefly recap, Jessica Lloyd has gone missing from her home in Belleville, Ontario. The OPP had found tire tracks close to her home. They then set up a roadblock to match those tracks. They called the owner of an SUV that had driven through one of the roadblocks in for questioning, and he agreed. Now we're getting into the video. Sunday, February 7th, 2010. The OPP have called a man into the Ottawa Police Department for some questioning. The man agrees and hops into his vehicle and drives on over. A black SUV pulls up to the OPP police station, and Colonel Russell Williams exits the vehicle and enters into the Ottawa Police Department unknowingly for questioning on the disappearance of Jessica Lloyd. David Russell Williams, who goes by Russell, was born March 7th, 1963 in Broomsgrove, Worcestershire, England. His family immigrated to Canada and they settled in Chalk River, Ontario. His parents ended up getting a divorce when he was only 6 years old, and then he moved again to Scarborough, Ontario with his mother and his new stepfather. In 1979, his family was relocated due to his stepfather's job, and they ended up in South Korea. In 1982, he moved back to Ontario, Canada, and studied economics and political science at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. His friends in college said that he never really talked about his parents or visited them. When holidays or breaks in the school year would come, he would often just spend the time alone. No one really knows how his upbringing was. He was known as quite the prankster in his dorm. He would often pull pranks on people, his favorite being that he would hide in roommates' closets for hours just so he could jump out and surprise them when they least expected it. No one found this creepy or even alarming. Instead, it actually became sort of a thing that they would do to one another over time. And actually, Russell was seen as anything but creepy. He was nicknamed the drill sergeant, or Sarge, because he would often take charge of the people around him, like giving chores and specific duties to his dorm mates. So yeah, he was that type of guy. He had one girlfriend at the beginning of college, which resulted in a really bad breakup. Friends around at the time said that it was very hard on Russell, saying that they had never seen him hurt that bad, but he also refused to talk about it. After that, he didn't date for a good 10 years. Then in 1986, he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts. The next year, in 1987, even though he had been studying economics for the past 4 years, he suddenly changed his passions and decided that he was going to join the Canadian Air Force and become a pilot. This talk came as a shock to his friends, and they questioned why the sudden change. And apparently Russell's answer was Tom Cruise and the movie Top Gun. I have no idea if that's true or not, but apparently that's what he said. His friends got concerned with the way he was acting because he went all into this Air Force thing. It was almost as if he was really trying to live out the movie Top Gun, and he almost seemed to be in some type of fantasy world. On June 1st of 1991, Russell Williams married Mary Elizabeth Harriman, who is an Associate Director of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. On Russell's biography that was posted up on the Department of National Defense website, his hobbies were photography, fishing, running, and golfing. They ended up moving to the Orleans suburb of Ottawa in July 2006. During this time, Russell was becoming one of Canada's top pilots, flying transport planes to war zones and natural disasters, along with flying important people around the world. In the Air Force, he was said to be punctual, factual, unusually calm, logical, rational, and always produced good quality work in a short amount of time. He was also said to be good with people, and a good leader, and good with the media and the public. And all of these reasons are why on July 15th, 2009, Russell Williams was sworn in as wing commander of CFB Trenton. CFB Trenton is Canada's busiest air transport base. This is an extremely important base, with it also being the point of arrival for the bodies of Canadian forces that are killed in Afghanistan, as well as the starting point for funeral processions. At this point in time, just to give you a perspective of how important Russell Williams was, he had flown Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles, the Governor of Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada, and other dignitaries across Canada and overseas. Now, of course, they don't just let any person fly the damn Queen. Russell had top security clearance to be able to do all of these things and move up in his career to such a high ranking in the military. And so because his wife worked and lived in Ottawa and he worked at the Trenton base, which was about 3 hours away, he started staying at their cottage in Tweed more often. They had owned this cottage for about 5 years now. It was the perfect in-between location. And when they got this cottage, Russell was ecstatic. On Sunday, February 7th, 2010, when the OPP interrogator Jim Smith called Russell Williams, Russell was at his home in Ottawa at the time. So, like I had said, Russell had a cottage in Tweed that he had been staying at more frequently. So he was well aware of what was all happening in that neighborhood. He had heard the rumors of the robberies and had also heard the rumor of the one sexual assault. And he actually lived directly beside the sexual assault victim, Lori. When her assault had taken place, he had heard about how his other neighbor, Larry, was being questioned and looked into about things. And so when Russell went in for questioning, he was expecting to be asked questions about his neighbor, Larry. Russell walked through the police station with his head held high, ready to get this over with so he can enjoy the rest of his Sunday. He walked into the interrogation room, sat in the chair in the far left corner, and then looked up at the camera and smiled. The interrogator, Jim Smith, asked him if he had ever been through anything like this, and he made it known that he had top security clearance. And then the interrogator tells him what he's really in there for. There are 4 cases that they are looking into: 2 burglaries with sexual assaults, a sexual assault with murder, and a disappearance. It's at this point in time, Russell is aware. They've finally connected all the cases. The interrogator, doing a fantastic job, let Russell know very calmly that if he needs a lawyer or wants to contact one at any time, he can do that whenever he would like. If there was any point in time where he just wanted to even pause the questions and just go ask a lawyer a question about anything, that wouldn't be a problem. The interrogator, wanting to make sure Russell didn't feel any sort of pressure, went a step further and let him know that they got free lawyers on call he can talk to if he doesn't have one of his own. But all of this, Russell just brushed off with a laugh. Jim Smith asked Russell if they could get his shoe prints, and he happily agreed. A little while after that, Jim Smith lets Russell know that his SUV Pathfinder's tires are the exact match to the impressions found at Jessica Lloyd's home. And so are his shoe prints, all confirmed by experts. Russell, sitting in silence, knows how this is going to end. Over the course of the most amazing interrogation I have ever seen, Russell Williams, Canadian's shining star pilot with top security clearance, confesses to the burglaries, the sexual assaults of the 2 women in Tweed, the rape and murder of Marie-France Comeau, and what they didn't know but suspected, the kidnapping and unfortunate murder of Jessica Lloyd. Russell made it very clear the only reason he was confessing was because the interrogator had told him that the police were at his home in Ottawa with a search warrant at that very moment, and he did not want to stress his wife out any more than she was already going to be. He mentions multiple times throughout the interrogation how he just wants to make this as easy as possible on his wife. Then Russell went on to detail what exactly happened to Jessica Lloyd and where they could find her. This next part is Jessica Lloyd's story. Jessica Lloyd was 27 years old and a spitfire. You can just see her energy radiating through any photos you look at of her. She was the type of person that can make friends with anyone. Her brother said that he would have a new friend come over, and within 30 minutes, she would be best friends with that person. She was just an absolute delight. During January of 2010, she was planning a vacation to Cuba, which she was super excited about. She was a hard worker and had a great job. She was very close with her family, and she had a large friend group, which she loved to spend as much time as possible with. She was definitely a people person and always wanted to make sure that everyone around her was happy. She was an intelligent woman and was doing well for herself, owning that huge house out on the highway. She also wasn't somebody that you would be able to label as lazy. She liked to keep in shape, and on Wednesday, January 27th, she was running on her treadmill getting her sweat on when Russell Williams was driving down that highway when he spotted her in her window and immediately became obsessed. He drove past her home the following night on Thursday, January 28th, and noticed that she wasn't there, and so he took this opportunity to break into her home and have a look around. He pulled into the field about 100 meters away from Jessica's home and walked across the field and entered her home through the back window. As he was snooping around, someone actually came to the door, and so he hid, but the person left within a short few minutes. It was later revealed this was actually a police officer checking out the home because she had noticed the SUV parked in the field and she thought it was suspicious. After the police officer left, Russell finished off his creeping, confirming Jessica lived alone. Then, as he was about to head off to his truck, Jessica pulled up to the house, and Russell hid again. Noticing that she was alone, he couldn't control himself, and he decided to wait around till she fell asleep. He seen her bedroom light click off, and he waited around a little longer to make sure she was fully asleep. And then he entered her home through the back patio doors. He walked up the stairs to her bedroom, and just as he was about to wake her up by hitting her over the head with his red metal flashlight, her eyes flew open, immediately flooded with terror. Right from the beginning, Jessica decided to take the opposite strategy that Marie-France did. Instead of fighting against everything tooth and nail, she decided to be as compliant as possible in hopes that it would save her life, with Russell even commenting, "You want to survive this, don't you?" But it only prolonged her torture. He tied her hands up behind her back, blindfolded her with duct tape, and cut her clothes off. He also put a zip tie around her neck, which was his way of proving he would follow through with any threats made. Then he brutally, repeatedly raped her, just like the others, videotaping and photographing every moment of it. After 4 hours of pure hell, he decided he wanted to keep her alive a little longer than the last. He walked her out of the house and got her into the front seat of his truck. He took her to his cottage in Tweed, arriving around 4:35 a.m. in the morning. He got her into the shower and then got in with her and washed her off with cold water while still filming. After the shower, Jessica still wet, naked, and cold, Russell decided it was time for a nap. While she was still tied up with her hands behind her back, he tied the rope that was attached to her to his waist so that he could fall asleep without worrying about her escaping. Then he slept for a couple hours. When Russell woke up, Jessica said she felt a seizure coming on. She told him that she had had them before, and she said that they were from stress. But her family stated later on that this wasn't true. She then had a massive seizure. It has been speculated that she faked it in hopes of getting away from him, but either way, whether she faked it or not, it's absolutely gut-wrenching to know that. He had no compassion whatsoever, though, and after she was done convulsing and came to, he continued to brutally assault her while taking photos and videos for the rest of the day. At one point, Jessica said to him, "If I die, will you make sure my mom knows I love her?" That's hard to say without crying. He told her that she would be let go later on, giving her false hope. As they were walking towards the front door that night, she thought she was being brought home. She thought that she was finally going to be free, that her worst nightmare was finally ending. But as she walked in front of him through the house, his urges came up and he hit her over the head with his red metal flashlight. Her skull gave away immediately. She instantly fell unconscious and started to bleed. He then took the rope that she was still tied up with and used it to strangle her to death. He finished off the rest of the roll of duct tape by binding her body up in a fetal position. Then he placed her body in the back of his garage, hidden, and headed off to work at the Trenton base. He had a very important meeting the next day. So he went to Trenton, then to Ottawa, and he stayed there to spend the weekend with his wife. He also had Monday off, so he didn't go back to Tweed until Tuesday. When he got to Tweed on Tuesday, it was very late, almost midnight. He put her body in his vehicle and then drove out to the rural forested area that was about 15 minutes away, and he turned onto Carey Road at the East Hungerford Road and Carey Road intersection and drove just a little ways down the road. He got out of his car, went to the trunk and got Jessica's body, and then he walked the 0.7 kilometers and put her body behind a large boulder, not even bothering to hide her any further. This location that he put Jessica's body just happened to be his neighbor Larry's favorite hunting spot, and Russell knew that. Once that information was revealed, it became clear that Russell was trying to frame Larry for all of his crimes. There were so many roads and forests out that way. Russell honestly probably could have hid her body somewhere that nobody would have ever found, but he decided to try and destroy another life while he was at it. Once all this information was confessed in the interrogation, Jessica Lloyd's family was contacted and they were informed that Jessica had been murdered and they had the suspect in custody. Marie-France Comeau's father was also contacted and told that they had her murder suspect in custody as well. At a press conference the next day on February 8th, 2010, they all learned, along with the rest of Canada and the world, that Colonel Russell Williams was being charged with first-degree murder of Jessica Lloyd. Along with that bombshell, they went on to reveal that he was also being charged in the death of Marie-France Comeau. The 2 sexual assaults, along with 86 robbery charges, were later added on as well. Saying that just gives me goosebumps. The shock of who was being charged was lit up across everyone's TV screens, and every news channel was broadcasting this breaking news. People in the military felt betrayed and disgusted, and honestly, they almost couldn't believe it. The surprise of Marie-France's murderer being one of her own commanding officers was just too unbelievable to get your head wrapped around, especially to her father, who felt the betrayal so deeply since he had been part of the military as well. Russell Williams went on trial for everything on October 18th, 2010, and thankfully he pled guilty to all charges being brought against him. Now, even though he had pled guilty, the Crown still needed to go over every single terrible detail with a fine-tooth comb in order to make sure that everyone knew just how sadistic this man was, and in hopes that he would never be granted parole in the future. He was right up there with Paul Bernardo, some even relating his case to the Golden State Killer, wondering what would have been if he wouldn't have been caught right away. It was through these court days that all the horrible, disgusting details of the crimes Russell Williams had done emerged. Since Russell liked to keep an extremely detailed record of every single offense, he had kept detailed records of everything written in notebooks or on the computer. He had also filed some of the underwear in file cabinets, along with detailed description of like who, what, where, when he got each piece of underwear and all of that. The Crown had all of that as evidence to read off to the courtroom, along with 2 computer hard drives full of horrific videos and photographs that Russell had taken during his attacks and break-and-enters. All of this evidence was collected from pretty much anywhere that he had stayed: his room at CFB Trenton, his cottage in Tweed, and at his home that he shared with his wife in Ottawa. We also learned of how many pairs of underwear Russell Williams did steal over the years, which was over 1,400. We don't know the exact number though, because when his stash would start to get full, he would burn some of the pairs to make room for new pairs. It's so disturbing. I can't even fathom that. Like 1,400 pairs. How many drawers did he steal? Like, damn. He also liked to take panoramic photos of women's and teens' bedrooms. It was also revealed during this trial that he had victims as young as 9 years old and did have pedophilic tendencies. Not only would he take pictures of their rooms, but he would also try on their underwear, bathing suits, dresses, and then he would take pictures of himself in their clothing. He would also be completely nude in some of these photos, posing around the room with clothing and such, doing unspeakable acts in the bedrooms of these teens, women, and young girls. We also learned during the trial of how Russell Williams met Marie-France on a flight they were both on due to their jobs. It was said that during this flight, they only spoke for a brief moment, but that's all it took for Russell Williams to become obsessed with Marie-France. Since he was her commanding officer, he was able to get access to all of her personal information. He knew her schedule, and he also looked up her address through their database. When Marie-France came home from her trip with Stephen Harper and noticed her things had been messed with, and she had accused her boyfriend, that was actually Russell. He had went to her house knowing that she was gone on that flight, and he did all the gross things that he liked to do. Photos shown in court showed Russell Williams in numerous photos wearing Marie-France's intimates, and there was a very distinct picture that has been brought up time and time again of him standing naked with an erect penis in front of Marie-France's freshly pressed uniform that was hanging just right behind him. The night of Marie-France's murder, he had finished up at the Trenton base and then headed towards her home in Brighton. He parked down the road about 700 meters, and so that his vehicle wouldn't be spotted. Then he went over to Marie-France's house and went through the basement window that was unlocked, and he hid behind the furnace with the duffel bag turned kill kit. And from there, that's when all of the horrible acts that I told you about in part 1 took place. On October 21st, 2010, Russell Williams was sentenced to 2 life sentences for first-degree murder of Jessica Lloyd and Marie-France Comeau, 2 10-year sentences for the other sexual assaults, 2 10-year sentences for forcible confinement, and 82 one-year sentences for burglary, with all sentences being served concurrently, meaning at the same time, and to be served at the Kingston Maximum Security Penitentiary. All of his sentences are being served concurrently, and the longest one being life in prison, which, if you are not aware, the term life in prison translates to 25 years in Canada. Also with that, Russell Williams will also not be eligible for early parole due to him being convicted of multiple murders. The very next day, on October 22nd, 2010, Russell Williams was stripped of his commission, ranks, and awards. His severance pay was terminated, and the salary he had received following his arrest was all seized. But, however, because there's always a however, for some goddamn reason, and I can't hide how angry I am about this, he is still entitled to his pension, believe it or not, which is said to be about $60,000 a year. Yeah, and he's been in jail in sentence since 2010, so $60,000 a year. He's probably got real good commissary money. Now, of course, I'm not the only one absolutely pissed off about this. There have been many people that have fought and questioned on numerous occasions what basically is going on with that. But I'm just going to dumb it down. The government or military, I don't know who, but basically they have said that it would be a lot of work to strip him of his pension, and it would have to go through all these different levels and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, that's as far as I'm going to get into it because I will get so angry if I bother. So if you want to look more into that, I would definitely suggest looking up Russell Williams' pension. And yeah, the Canadian Forces also had his uniform with his name that was embroidered on it burned, along with his medals all destroyed. On top of that, they also had his vehicle crushed and scrapped. A few months later, in December 2010, his wife officially filed for divorce. He was being held at the Kingston Pen, but it actually closed back in September 2013, and so Russell Williams is now located at Port Cartier Institution, a maximum security prison in Port Cartier, Quebec. Now, Russell will not be eligible for parole until October of 2035. With his crimes being so heinous, however, it is highly doubtful that he will ever be granted that parole. And yeah, I'm thoroughly disgusted. I feel like I have to go take 10 showers. The research for this was draining, to say the least. It was very hard to write this script, but honestly, I just think about what the women went through, and writing the script is literally can't even compare to what these women went through. It's horrific. If you're still curious about this case and like want to look into things more about it, I would highly suggest watching the interrogation done by Jim Smith. It is honestly amazing. He is so composed throughout the whole thing. He asks the right questions. It's just amazing. There have been a lot of people on YouTube to analyze the interrogation and stuff. So if you're into watching those types of videos, those are on YouTube as well. And I will definitely have all of those linked in the description box down below, along with all the sources that I've used to look into all of this. Yeah. Another thing I didn't really dive into was his whole like wife situation. There have been accusations against her, naming her in lawsuits and stuff. But honestly, if I got into every single detail pertaining to Russell Williams and this whole case, I would be here for days, honestly. But if you do want to look more into that, I would definitely recommend it because it is quite interesting. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think about this video. What are your thoughts on Russell still getting his pension? Just everything. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that stuck out to you guys? One thing that did stick out to me was that right at the beginning, they had said that they had collected DNA evidence from the one home. And I'm just curious if that DNA was ever was enough to run through a database or anything like that, because surely Russell's like DNA and stuff, I would have assumed would have been on some kind of database, but maybe military and like criminal stuff isn't connected. But in that case, then you would think that they should be. But I don't know. There's a lot of questions. There was, even though the police interrogation was amazing, there were a lot of problems with the police work and police communication. But that is also another thing that I couldn't have possibly talked on because, I would have been here all day covering every little detail. But yeah, so that's all I have for you guys today. I, of course, thank you so much for listening to the victim stories. I appreciate you guys so much watching these videos. Honestly, it just means the world to me to see that you guys are appreciating these and liking them. Or not liking them, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so anyways, take care of yourself out there, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you guys. Bye.